Hello and good morning. It's Phil Thatch, and I'm here today at the Hiawassee Wildlife Refuge, and I have the brand new Canon RF 200 to 800 f6.3 to f9 lens. Really excited about trying it out here. The Sandhill cranes are here. It's pretty foggy so far this morning. I'm here just a few minutes after sunrise, and it's pretty foggy so far, but things will clear out pretty soon, and we'll get started. Really excited about using this lens. It is super cold this morning. It's 29 degrees Fahrenheit. That's like minus 1.5 or something like that Celsius. It's cold. Let's get started. When we first arrived at the Hiawassee Wildlife Refuge this morning, it was almost too foggy to do bird photography, but the sun was rising over behind these trees. There's a house in the background, but you can barely see it because there was so much fog. And I tried to make a photograph of this with the 200 to 800, but 200 was just too long. So I got out the 24 to 105 and made this 105 millimeter shot. Thought it turned out pretty nice. So far, so good with the 800 millimeter lens. The shots appear to be sharp on the back of the camera at 800 millimeters. I guess we'll see right now. I'll show you some that I've been making. Dan Williams pointed out a snow goose to me, and I was still fiddling around at 1/100th and got a blurry shot of it in flight. But it came by later, and I got a sharp shot, I think. Here's my first shot of the morning that I decided to share, and you can see the fog in the background is in the bottom half of the frame, and it's kind of pink in the morning light, and it turns to slightly blue sky above that. And here is the snow goose. The first time I tried to shoot it, I was at too slow of a shutter speed because I was working on that landscape shot that I showed you at the beginning of the video. But now I've got the snow goose at 1/2000th, and it looks pretty good. This was probably the closest bird to fly by there at the gazebo and observatory area all morning long, and I was able to fill the frame with it pretty well using the 800 millimeter lens wide open at f9. But this is also a type of photography that I like to do there where the bird is really small in the frame, especially when it's foggy. You can get some nice landscape photography shots. And then you can also do close-ups. The close-ups probably look better if you're watching this video on your phone, but if you're watching on your TV or on a large monitor, sometimes the landscape photography shots might look a little better. I always enjoy getting photographs of the birds if they're close enough to fill the frame, and the one on the right is what you don't normally see, and the one on the left is what you do normally see. I managed to get a couple more shots. This one, I slowed down my shutter speed to 1/400th, so my ISO wasn't so high at f9. And that's Sandhill cranes in the background. Here's another photograph of that same bird that was wandering around, and you can see frost on the grass that it's walking through. It was really cold that morning, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Just beautiful Sandhill cranes. Now let's get back to in-flight shots. Here's a 1/1600th of a second shot at ISO 500 of one of the Sandhill cranes flying by from the right to the left. And that's the direction they flew most of the morning. I guess the wind has an effect on that. The background looks fairly nice. The tree, you can still tell it's a tree, but it's not distracting, I think. And here's another one of the landscape photography type shots. I really enjoy this type of shot, especially if the background doesn't have bright sun on it, but the bird does. I really enjoy that look and that foggy look. Hopefully you're watching this on a large monitor. Here's 3 Sandhill cranes flying from the right to the left, and you can see lots of Sandhill cranes on the ground below them as they fly by. Looks like the one on the right might be a little younger than the other two. And here's one flying by. Those trees are a lot closer in the background, but still not too awfully distracting. And in this f9 shot of the Sandhill crane, here's another one flying in that direction, and this one has a tree in the foreground as well as trees in the background. A lot of times with the trees, as they flew to the left, that was the closest they would get. So I have a lot of photographs of this variety. Look at all the Sandhill cranes in the background of this shot, some of them in the mud and some of them in the water, and all of them looking for something to eat. Next up is another up-close shot. This one's f9 at 800 millimeters, as most of these shots have been, flying from the left to the right this time, right in front of the gazebo, but far enough away to where 800 millimeters was still necessary. And here's another one of the birds that's walking around near us. Still got frost on the grass as the morning is progressing. And this one I shot at f11 just to see what it would look like. And it looked good at f11 as well. Now I'm back to f9, shooting at 1/2000th of a second most of the morning. Sometimes I would slow down to 1/1600th. Sometimes I'd go up to 1/2500th. And here is another single bird. Look at all the beautiful colors in the Sandhill crane. I just love all the browns and blues and grays. It's just a beautiful bird. And here's another one in flight with kind of a landscape photography sort of situation. It's almost too foggy to see anything except for the bird in flight. in this particular example. Here's another right to left photograph of a pair of Sandhill cranes, and at f9, even though they're not perfectly even, they still appear to both be in focus, so that is a help. This is probably my favorite photograph of the entire day. This is another landscape photography type shot. I like the wing position. I like the shadow of the bird's neck and head on its wing, and I like the background. So that was pretty cool. This one is another one along those same lines, but not as pretty as the last one. I almost quit editing after I did the last one because I said, I'm not going to find a shot as pretty as that anymore. But look at these two flying so close together and with the same wing position. I really like the way this shot turned out. Couldn't get them more synchronized than this if you tried. And next up is another kind of landscape photography type shot with the golden grass in the background and all the trees and water in the foreground and the bird flying almost directly at us. Next up is another left to right shot, but this is what a sandhill crane looks like when it's coming into land. If you see a sandhill crane flying like this, I guarantee you it's about to land. And I got a couple of photographs of the cranes as they were landing. Here's the second one. And this is pointing in a different direction over towards the left instead of towards the right from the gazebo. Next up, the snow goose came by for another pass, and I managed to get another shot of it, this time at 1/2500th of a second. And after this, I decided to move on to another location to see if maybe I could find a songbird to photograph. I came to a different area, kind of a little wooded area, because I wanted to try songbird photography with this lens. And I managed to find a Carolina wren. And at f9, in the little wooded area that I was in, I had to use a really slow shutter speed to bag a shot. But I'm pretty sure I bagged a few, and we'll see how it looks now. I was happy to find this Carolina wren and snap a couple of photographs of it. It's definitely sandhill crane season in my area right now, so that's what I concentrated most of the day on. But for most of the year, I concentrate on small birds like this, and I definitely wanted to see if the 200 to 800 would work on these birds. And even at extremely slow shutter speeds, I was able to bag some fairly nice shots. Well, now I am on the other side of the river. I'm at the western side of the Blythe Ferry landing, and I'm sitting on the dock that you would use to help you launch your boat. And down there, just an incredible distance away, is probably 500 American white pelicans. And every once in a while, they'll fly by in front of me, but the light is in the wrong direction. They're flying closer to this side, but the light is better from that side. This 500 millimeter photograph is horribly backlit. And oh, by the way, I switched to the Canon R7 from the R6. So now I'm in a crop sensor 1.6 crop situation. And now this is an 800 millimeter shot on a crop camera. So it's 1,280 millimeters full frame equivalent. And it's not extraordinarily sharp. Here's another shot of that same bird. It circled back around. Now it's a little closer, and I was able to fill the frame on the R7 at only 455 millimeters. Probably my favorite pelican shot of the day. I used the R7 for a pretty good while, 30 or 45 minutes, and the pelicans were all over there, but the light was terrible. As you can see when I point the camera this way, the light's terrible. But there were a couple of sandhill cranes and a great blue heron this way. And as you can see, when I point the camera this way, suddenly the light gets a little bit better. It's still really harsh today. So I made some photographs of them with the R7 and the 200 to 800. I can tell you that the R7 struggles a little bit more to focus at f9 than the R6 Mark II. That's definitely for sure. But I think the R6 Mark II focuses better at any aperture and under any lighting conditions than the R7. It's just a better autofocusing camera. Here's a shot of the great blue heron, and I love the way there's bright light on the great blue heron, but the water has reflecting areas that are much darker in the background. Only a 324 millimeter shot at f10. And here's another shot just like that last one, 324 millimeters, except for this time I've got the entire bird's reflection in the shot, and I really enjoy the way this shot turned out. Now I switched over to the sandhill cranes. This is a 600 millimeter shot of one of the sandhill cranes that was very near where that great blue heron was. Turned out pretty nice. I'd stop down to f10 for these instead of shooting wide open at f9. Here's another one. And this one I had to go vertical in order to get 800 millimeters. I wanted to show you guys what it looked like at 800 millimeters on the R7, but I couldn't fit it in the frame horizontally. So I turned the camera vertical and I was able to fit the entire bird in and get a couple of shots with the R7 at 800 millimeters. And now we're back to the great blue hair, and the reflection's nowhere near as good in this shot, but I'm further away, and this is an 800 millimeter shot. I was actually on the fishing pier when I made this shot, and Roger Ashley pointed out this bald eagle way in the distance. He has an eagle eye, Roger Ashley, and I made a shot of it, and it's tiny in the frame, even at 1280 millimeters full frame equivalent. I hope you enjoyed this real world photography video with the RF 200 to 800. If you like stuff like this, there will be many, many more videos on this channel using that lens and other lenses, even from other manufacturers. So I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, take a moment, reach down, hit the thumbs up button. If you want to see some more stuff like this, subscribe, hit the bell. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.